Hey everyone, my name is Jadeyn.
And my name's Connie.
Welcome to today's podcast of protein propaganda and the forgotten fiber. Today that we will be talking about the rise in protein food products, the purpose of protein, our forgotten fiber, and why fiber matters.
So, to bring us to our first talking point, there has been a very large rise in protein products stocking the shelves. For example, nowadays you walk into a Walmart or a Target and you see shelves absolutely stocked with protein chips, sugary protein cereals, pastries, ice cream, sodas, coffee, shakes.
I mean, yeah, I've been seeing so many celebrities like things on the shelves. It's kind of crazy. Like, have you seen Khloe Kardashian's protein popcorn?
I feel like I have. I feel like for me what gets me is like seeing these like protein products on the shelves in like in large colorful text. It says like 14 grams of protein, like even at Costco.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I've been seeing so many things listed as high protein and like, oh, like come try our new high protein thing. And I mean, I've seen other celebrities do it as well, like Venus Williams, which I would say is a more reliable source than Khloe Kardashian. Because I mean, why would I would rather buy from
Yeah.
Venus Williams than Khloe Kardashian. But yeah, have any of these like almost influenced you in buying them?
Um Honestly a little bit. I try to eat. I feel very like privileged to be able to read like a food label and know like, oh, like this is kind of like high in fat, or like, yeah, like this has good fiber, iron.
Mm-hmm.
Especially that's just what I look for. But if like a product says like 14 grams of not fiber of protein, I'm like, oh, okay, like maybe I'll give this a try. Like,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, how are you going about reading the nutrition label, especially for like protein? How would you determine?
yeah. So once again, I've taken like, I think since I've started like college, 3 different nutrition courses, and some of like the course material is they teach you how to read like um a food label. So I felt that it was so important that I actually like wrote this down in like my notes app on my phone. And the rule is like, if the percent daily value is greater than 20, it's considered high. 5% or lower, it's considered less.
Nice. That is a really good way to do it. I mean, it's really good that you were able to like learn all of that from your
Yeah.
classes and write that down. That's really smart, honestly. I should do that when grocery shopping. I just try to remember everything. A rule of thumb that I've heard is that like if you add a 0 to the grams of protein and then if it's higher than the entire product's calories, it could be considered high in protein. Like for example, if you have 16 grams of protein in a serving of like tuna for 110 calories, when you add that 0 to the 16, it'll become 160 and that'll be higher than the 110 in calories, so you can consider that high protein. I'm not sure how viable that is, but that's kind of how I go off of it. And then also similar to you, I think of like the percent daily value. But yeah.
Going back to like a previous question, have you ever considered like picking up like a protein product off the shelves just because they seem like enticing?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, even recently when I went to the store, I bought these sea salt dried edamame from Costco. They're really good. And it's like they have a good amount of protein. I mean, they weren't listed as high protein, but I just looked at the nutrition facts label myself and then did my own research and seeing if it was good or a healthy item as well. And I thought that it was really nice. And it also had high fiber, which we will also get into later.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
So after having like this small discussion on like protein and like the products are stocking the shelves, one question that I think we should ask ourselves is, have us consumers given thought to the effectiveness of these protein products? So first talking point is, I'm going to get into what is protein. So first of all, what is protein and what are its uses? Protein is similar to other organic molecules. It contains carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen and nitrogen. And the human body uses 20 amino acids, and amino acids provide the major building blocks for synthesizing tissues. According to a journal published in 2026, the author Clinthorne J. et al., the journal titled the Journal of Nutrition, Volume 156, titled A Modern Take on Protein Nutrition Meets Evolving Consumer Perceptions. It states, as we know, dietary protein plays a crucial role in maintaining muscle mass, stabilizing sugars, blood sugars, supporting growth and repair, and maintenance of cells, as well as hormonal regulations and satiety. Specifically, it serves as building blocks. Um, Even in previous courses that we take in, it serves its role in cellular transportation, cell signaling, fluid balance, pH balance, immune system. It does a lot. It's a source of energy like carbohydrates and fats. Like other macronutrients, there are guidelines for recommended amounts. So, for example, protein, I believe it's zero point 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. But depending on how physically active an individual may be, they may require a little bit more or a little bit less proteins to meet their energy needs, which takes us to our next talking point: why the rise in protein products. In the same journal, A Modern Take on Protein Nutrition Meets Evolving Consumer Perceptions, the protein content of food is increasingly being used by people to identify healthy foods. So once again, going back to like a previous conversations, um, food companies are now just sticking like 14 grams of protein, like these large numbers that consumers can see and like will draw them to it. And in the same article, it states the reason some individuals are seeking protein vary. For example, some of the examples listed are muscle health, strength gains, as most frequently replied, energy, less fatigue, um, over well-being, health, aging, bone health. However, it was mostly males that replied they are wanting to consume more protein based on muscle strength and physical appearance. Continuing with the same article, something that we should begin to think about ourselves as consumers is how these high protein foods are being processed and their effectiveness. I believe it was stated in the same journal. Even fortification of whole foods like plain yogurt with isolated proteins such as whey proteins, powders, they're still considered very highly processed. Does this mean processed foods with added proteins are bad? No, but it does dive into a further conversation of protein sources and their quality. However, not that we're bashing on proteins, because it does serve a lot of important functions and uses. This information is just meant to pinpoint why the sudden rise in proteins are all over the shelves. And to conclude with this same journal, their final thoughts were healthcare professionals can suggest consumers to opt for fresh or minimally processed animal sources, including meat, poultry, eggs, and more plant based. Additionally, they caution it is important for health professionals to be aware of making these considerations/slash recommendations based on solely trends.
And with all of this talk about protein, other nutrients can be neglected. One that we would like to focus on today would be fiber. Now, some of you may have heard people spout information about different forms of fiber and why you should pay attention to what you're consuming, but did that information really stick? We are here to help you confirm your questions on which types of fiber you should be consuming and what it can do for you. Simply categorized, we can separate fibers into soluble and insoluble. With soluble fibers, these are viscous and ferment within the colon. They dissolve in water and form a gel-like substance within the intestines. This substance can help slow digestion, and some benefits of soluble fiber include lowering cholesterol, as well as blood glucose after eating, and insulin levels. According to Arya Rothna's article published in 2025, Physicochemical and Functional Properties of Soluble and Insoluble Dietary Fibers in Whole Grains and Their Health Benefits, Volume 14. Now, how can we get some soluble fiber? Some common foods high in soluble fiber include oats, peas, beans, apples, bananas, avocados, citrus fruits, carrots, barley, and psyllium. Now we can talk about the other form of fiber, insoluble. These cannot dissolve within water and pass through the digestive system in large bulk. This can help move along the process of digestion and increase regularity in one's bowel movements. Insoluble fibers can be found in many common foods. This includes items such as wheat, whole grain foods, beans, vegetables such as carrots, cucumbers, and tomatoes. Typically, one can find themselves digesting the most insoluble fiber through cereal. So, how can fiber affect your health overall? Good question. Some general health benefits that we will get into include cardiovascular disease, diabetic, and cancer prevention, as well as gastrointestinal health and obesity control. So, with cardiovascular health, soluble fibers creating reductions in low density lipoprotein cholesterol levels helps reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease. With the viscosity that soluble fibers create, it stops bile acids from being reabsorbed and causes them to be extracted, according to Arya Rathna. Diabetes mellitus can be prevented through the low glycemic index of fibrous foods as well as increasing satiety. Through cancer reduction, decreasing the time in which items are within the intestinal tract, carcinogens have less time to be absorbed and are diluted through their processing. Gastrointestinal health can be aided through the prebiotic effects that dietary fiber can exude. It can help produce beneficial gut microbiota and leads to improved immune function as well as gastrointestinal health. And finally, with weight reduction, high fiber content can be whole grain foods that helps prevent weight gain through increasing satiety by the slowing of carbohydrate absorption and giving that full feeling. A meta-analysis referenced in Arya Rathna's article describes whole grain intake being significantly associated with lower body mass index values. And similarly, a different study showed that results of lower BMI and fat mass in overweight adults after being in a whole grain diet. Specifically with cancer prevention, I find it extremely important that people understand the rise of colon cancer as today in 1 in 5 people diagnosed are under the age of 55, according to the Cancer Research Institute. Now we can bring this all together.
This brings us to our last and final talking point, called macronutrient balance. So far, we have covered the popularity of protein products, its role in the human body, and why the sudden rise of them. Additionally, we just heard the difference between insoluble fiber, soluble fiber, and its role in the human body. An article from the Italian Journal of Pediatric, Volume 47, titled Macronutrient Balance and Micronutrients Amounts Through Growth and Development by Giovanni Savarino et al., published on May of 2021. The article states that protein is needed to support steady growth, muscle development, and other important functions, as stated earlier. Protein intake is essential for growth from infancy to early childhood to adulthood. However, we should also aim to include other important nutrients in our diets, such as fiber. Although it is not essential for tissue growth, such as protein, it still plays an important role in digestive function and disease prevention. Balance of nutrients is important for healthy development throughout life. In the big picture, balance of nutrients can help with to prevent obesity and nutrient deficiencies and support long-term health, as stated by the article.
So, Connie, would you say that you'll be looking at the nutrition label a little differently after today?
Yeah, I feel like most definitely. I'm gonna continue to look at the food label, and yeah, like I said earlier, I feel like very privileged to be able to do that, and like I feel it's like an important, very important skill to have, as like the food market is just very like saturated with like all these health claims in our face.
Definitely. And I think being able to get that information out there to the public will be like exceedingly useful for
Yeah.
everybody, especially in times where everything is processed and like you can barely trust what's on like the ingredients label. Like you can't even
Yeah.
read what's in there. And yeah, well, I guess that wraps up all the time we have here. We hope that you all have some good takeaways from this podcast and that the next time you go looking at the nutrition facts label, make sure you're not only checking your protein, but your fiber too. And be sure to use those information points that we listed earlier about the 20% of the daily value of protein, or trying to use that little rule of thumb that I provided earlier as well. But yeah, thank you all for listening, and we hope you have a good one. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.